Well, good day, my friends and fellow off-road enthusiasts. Today we're going to do a little bit of preventative maintenance and replace our timing chain and tensioner. I'll show you how to do this step by step coming up. Short backstory here. A few videos ago, I picked up this 2014 KX450F. The coolant temperature sensor was damaged, causing it to have a hard start. Fairly easy fix, but in the course of the diagnostics, we checked everything out on the bike, and the compression was great. Passed the cylinder leak down test with flying colors. All the resistances worked out fine on our sensors. So we've got a fantastic base here, and I decided I'm going to go ahead and keep this bike. I'm going to make it my bike. I'm actually going to get rid of my beloved 07, which has been really good to me. I've had nothing but good luck with that bike. It's been great. I think it's probably time to go ahead and step up to fuel injected at this point. So since I don't know anything about this bike's past, and I know the top end is great on it, valves were right in spec, the intake camshaft was off by one tooth, so somebody's been in here. I'm not sure if they did any top end work or whatever, but I want this bike to last for me. I'm not a hardcore racer, so I'm not going to rebuild this thing constantly. I'm kind of a woods and track guy, like riding Durham Town, Iron Mountain, stuff like that in North Georgia. So I'm going to go ahead and replace my timing chain, replace my tensioner. It's cheap insurance. This is like $150, under $150, $120 or something like that for brand new OEM factory parts. So I'm going to walk you through how to do that step by step. First thing I did was drain the engine oil. You don't necessarily have to do that. You could actually lean the bike over just a little bit because we have to take this cover off, and you will lose some oil. So I did drain the engine oil down. I changed it when I first got the bike, but to flush the engine out, I'm just going to go ahead and change it again, put another new filter in it. Definitely need to get some new plastics. Your plug for your fuel pump is right here. And then to disconnect your fuel line from the fuel pump, you have to push these little tabs. The clip will snap up and you can wiggle this off. Now, maybe a little fuel will come out. Just wiggle that back and forth to get that off. Get your fuel tank out of your way. Go ahead and get your spark plug out. That's going to be a 16 millimeter. A magnet helps. Next we'll take our valve cover off. That's going to be a 5 millimeter hex. Mind this gasket here. If you leave this gasket out or under this camshaft bridge, there's another O-ring that's in there. If you leave either one of these out, you will get oil inside the spark plug tube. And on the side of your cylinder head, there's a little hole, and you'll see oil leaking out of there. Telltale sign that these gaskets are missing or bad. Next step is going to be getting your engine on top dead center. Now, what does that mean? Top dead center basically means with the piston at its topmost travel. The way we do this is we'll rotate our crankshaft counterclockwise. You don't want to go backwards, so we want to go counterclockwise, turning it forward. And what we're looking for is a mark that will show up on the flywheel, which is right underneath here, and it will line up with this case. Now, if you look closely in there, you can see the mark on the flywheel lined up with the case. You know that this piston is at top dead center. Now, being as this is a 4-stroke engine, there's actually 2 top dead centers. The one you're looking for is where your camshaft timing mark right here is going to line up with the top of the head. And the intake timing mark should be pretty close to lining up with the top of the head. And I'm going to explain how we check this as we put it back together. But if your timing mark on your exhaust camshaft is over here, you're off by 180 degrees. Give it one more full turn, reline up your mark, and then your camshaft timing should be lined up. Once you're in this position, we can take off our automatic tensioner. And that's just two 8mm bolts. Now from this point forward, we absolutely want to make sure this engine does not move forward or backward. We want to keep this thing on top dead center. As you can see now with the tensioner out, that the chain is very loose. Now I'm going to take my magneto cover off, stator cover, flywheel cover, whatever you want to call it. We're going to go ahead and take this off. This is just a vent tube. Now we'll go wiggle this cover off. Some oil may come out. Now there's going to be a little bit of a magnetic pull from your flywheel. Just got to kind of shimmy it off. Next step, we'll take our flywheel off, and you're going to need a flywheel puller. For this KX450F, the puller is Motion Pro. It's a metric 28 by 1.0 right-hand thread. That will thread onto your flywheel, and then the center bolt will push against your crankshaft. There is a little nut on the end to protect the threads. This is extremely difficult to get off without this tool. You could definitely damage things, so I highly recommend it. It's fairly inexpensive. I think it's 25 bucks. Do yourself the favor. Now, I'm almost positive that this is moved off of our top dead center, but it's something we'll set back up again before we button everything down. Just keep in mind your Woodruff key here. You want to keep that sort of straight up and down. You want to make sure this little key doesn't fall out either. Since I'm already in here, I'm going to go ahead and pull the oil pump apart. There's a screen right here that will pick up debris from the engine, and we'll go ahead and clean that right now while we're in here. Now this is a retainer for the cam chain, and this is bent. That's not supposed to be like that. I'm going to straighten it, but I'm going to assume that this thing had a timing chain issue in the past. Right here is your screen. This actually has two pickups. There's this pump here, and there's another pump down inside the sump, and there's another pickup in there. So if you're having oil pressure issues, there's potential that that bottom screen may be blocked, or this screen may be blocked. So it does have a little bit of debris in it. We will wash this really good, clean it. All right, to go ahead and get our chain off, we're going to go ahead and unbolt our camshaft caps. Kawasaki use a numbering sequence on them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and we'll take them off in that order. And we'll also install them in that order. 4 black bolts are going to go on the inside. Just keep that in mind. And the 4 silver bolts will go on the outside. Now before you pull these cam caps, one thing to keep in mind, there's oil tubes that feed to the back. These potentially will fall out, so you just want to be careful taking this apart. There's also dowel pins that could potentially fall out. I'll put these back in the head. Now if you look here, there's the second O-ring I was talking about. If this falls out and drops out, you will definitely get oil down in your spark plug tube. So keep that in mind. Now when we pull the front cam cap off, they're going to have half moon retainers. It's not a major deal right now if they fall out and fall down in the crankcase because we've already got that open. But if you're taking these off to do valve shimming and one drops down there, well, sometimes you get lucky and you can fish it out with a magnet, but a lot of times you have to pull the whole flywheel apart to get down in there. This will have the dowels as well. One retainer is stuck in the cam cap. The other one's still in the camshaft. At this point, now you can go ahead and take your camshafts out. Taking your intake one off first. Let's move it out of the way. Exhaust second. And you can just let your chain drop down inside the case. Now if the chain is down here, we can finagle it out. It may be a little bit difficult getting it past this guide. First thing I'm looking at on a chain is to see how smooth the chain moves. And this one is super smooth. When these chains start to stretch, you'll start to see these links. They'll stay like kinked. They'll be really tight. And you'll have to try to pull them apart. I have a good feeling that this chain has been replaced. Now, did they replace this with an OEM chain, or did they buy a $11 Chinese chain, which will not last? So I'm not going to take that chance. This thing's going in the trash. And I've got a genuine Kawasaki chain. Part number is 92057-0180. I believe that's going to be pretty much the same on all the KXs, but don't quote me on that. And our tensioner is 12048-0021. All right, we got our screen all cleaned up. Get that installed. Put a little bit of tension on the chain and that guide, and she'll slip right in. A little trick that I like to do is when I drop the timing chain down into the engine, I put a zip tie on it. This way, if it does fall, I don't have to try to fish it out. I can just pull it right back out. Now that we got our new chain installed, it's kind of reverse procedure. Get our flywheel back on, get our cover back on. This mark on our exhaust camshaft is going to line up with the head facing forward. So here we can see, I put the exhaust camshaft in, double check to make sure I'm still on top dead center. We're off a tooth. It's as simple as just rotating it. Now, as you can see, this cam will rotate, but you can feel that when I pull it, I turn it counterclockwise a little bit, you feel it get tight. So you want that to be tight without turning the crankshaft. If it does move a little bit, go ahead and reset your top dead center, and that mark should line directly up with that head. That means that cam is perfect. Next, we're going to put our intake camshaft on. And if you look right here, there's a dot. That is going to almost line up with this head. Now, this absolutely will take some trial and error, constantly making sure that you're on top dead center. So when you're on top dead center, and you got both camshafts in, the exhaust camshaft mark should line directly up with the head. The intake mark should be pretty close to the head on this side. Now, to know exactly that you're in the right spot, you need to count the pins on your timing chain. So starting with the exhaust camshaft mark would be pin number 1. You're going to count out 29 pins, and the 29th pin should line up on the intake camshaft dot. If it does, you are 100% perfect, and we can go ahead and put our cam caps back on. I'm going to go ahead and put some assembly lube on the camshaft main journals. Clean engine oil would work just fine as well. Use caution putting these back on. Like I said before, if they drop down inside the engine, now you got to try to fish them out. Be mindful of this O-ring. Make sure that gets back in there. Make sure that these tubes go inside these holes. That's what lubricates, that's what sends oil to this other cam cap to lubricate your camshaft. So very important. Now you're going to tighten and torque your cam caps back down following the sequence that they have here. And I'll put the torque spec for these up on the screen. It's very important that you don't over torque these. Once you've doubled and triple checked your timing marks to be 100% sure that you're dead on, time to go ahead and install the tensioner. Now you buy a Kawasaki tensioner, they don't come with a gasket, so you'll need a new gasket. Also, it does not come with the back cap bolt, which you'll just take off your old one. It does come with a little key that holds the tensioner in. If you were to pull this out, it would spring out. If that does happen, you can just put a small flathead screwdriver in there, turn it all the way back in, hold it, and then put your key back in. Save these keys, my friends, because if you ever do another one of these or you have to take one apart and you're not replacing the tensioner, this is an easy way to hold it in place for you. These tensioners have a ratchet mechanism inside, so once they come out, they don't go back in unless you actually use the screw to pull them back in. So now that we get our tensioner installed, we can go ahead and pull that key. As you can see, it tightened the chain right up. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and make 2 full revolutions of the engine and double check that my timing marks are still where they need to be. And we're going to do this going counterclockwise or anti-clockwise. I'll just do a couple of rotations here. All right, back on top dead center. Exhaust camshaft lined up. 29 pins to the intake camshaft mark. We are perfect. Now it's just a matter of putting it all back together. Well, basically let it run for about 30 seconds. Then let it sit for a minute or two, recheck your oil, top that off, and then the next important thing to do, get on it and go tear it up. This procedure is going to be very similar between all the Japanese makes. Honda's a little bit different because they have a single camshaft, and the specs are probably going to be different on every one of them. So definitely check your book, but the procedure is fairly the same on all of them. This is something that I highly recommend you do if you pick up a used bike. Unless somebody's already done it, spend the money, spend the time. It's going to save you a lot of headaches and hassles in the future. It's totally worth it. It's cheap insurance. So if anything I did helped you out, if this video helped you out, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. I'd love a subscription if you're not subscribed already. That would definitely help the channel out. It helps me bring this content to you. I thank you so much for watching. It's been a lot of fun, and it's a fairly easy project. So any questions, throw them down in the comments section. I'll be happy to help you out if I can. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.